Hey everyone, welcome to Ex-Fundie Diaries. My name is Elly, my pronouns are she, they, and this is the long-awaited video about gender. I'll be sharing more about my pronouns, about my gender identity, and how I got to this point. And I'll also be sharing some childhood experiences that I haven't talked about before, and I'll be reading a journal entry. But before I get to all of that, I just wanted to let you know I'll be putting a whole list of resources in the description for anyone who is new to this conversation about gender identity, or just for anyone who wants to learn more. There is a really great glossary of LGBTQ+ terms that I will put at the top of the list. And if you hear any terms in this video that you're not sure what they mean, or you'd like a bit of clarification, you can go to that glossary and look it up. It has so many different terms. Of course, it's not a complete deep dive into each of these terms, but it gives a good first basic definition. So terms like cisgender, non-binary, the difference between sex and gender, etc. I will also be putting links to videos and other content by some of my favorite non-binary creators. In this video, I will just be sharing my story, and I can only speak from my own experience. And my experience definitely does not speak for all non-binary people. And I think it's really important for us to listen to many different stories and perspectives. Even within the LGBTQ+ community, there is so much diversity, and it's really important to take an intersectional approach and to do what we can to support the safety and thriving of everyone, especially our most vulnerable members. And of course, for any fellow non-binary people who are watching, please feel free, if you feel comfortable, to put your experiences in the comments. I am a little nervous to film this video. I've actually already tried to film it once before, so this is my second try. So I am just going to start with a label. I am a non-binary person. And that feels really exciting and also really scary to say out loud. But it's true, and I always want to be honest on my channel and in life in general. Non-binary is an umbrella term, and there are many different gender identities within that umbrella. And for me personally, the term that feels the most authentic to me is genderqueer. That could change in the future, but for now, that term really speaks to me at a very deep level. I think one of the reasons why the term genderqueer resonates for me so much right now is because when I look back over my childhood, and especially the years where I felt the most like my true self, before the outside pressure to conform got strong enough, I was really queering gender in my very small way before I had any concept of what that meant. And even after I started to conform to the gender roles of Christian fundamentalism in how I dressed and in how I behaved, I still fought against those gender roles in certain ways, and they just didn't sit right with me, ever. They always felt wrong. The other reason that I really identify with the term genderqueer is that I feel like it has a lot of room for nuance and or vagueness, if that makes sense. Here's a definition from Non-Binary Wiki. Genderqueer is an umbrella term that refers both to non-normative gender identity and gender expression. The label may also be used by individuals wishing to identify as holding queer or non-normative gender without being any more specific about the nature of their gender. And I really like that last part because I don't always feel like I have my gender all figured out. And that's another reason I really like genderqueer, is because Other definitions I've seen say that genderqueer is like a mix of male and female identities and non-male and non-female identities. It just feels very creative to me. I feel like there are different parts of me that are gendered in different ways, and then other parts of me that aren't gendered at all. And I'm gonna use kind of a silly metaphor, but if my gender were a smoothie, there would be different ingredients, but when blended together, they make up my gender. They are all different, they're different ingredients, but they are part of the same smoothie. This is such a ridiculous metaphor, but I hope that helps explain. So I'll explain later how I got to this understanding of myself, where I'm currently at with my gender identity. But for now, I'd like to share some very formative childhood experiences having to do with gender. I've shared multiple times before that I was a tomboy when I was a little kid. And the way that I actually was introduced to the word tomboy was my cousin. He actually makes quite a recurring appearance on this channel in these stories because he and some of my other cousins were my window to the outside world. In the high control, high demand environment of Christian fundamentalism, I didn't even know the word tomboy until my cousin told me when I was about 8 or 9 that I was one. And I absolutely loved the idea of being a tomboy. It was so incredibly affirming. It gave me a word for how I felt inside and what I liked to do, what I liked to wear, and how I liked to be. When a big group of cousins would all get together, I would hang out with my boy cousins and we would climb trees, we would have spinning contests, which is kind of gross now, but at the time it was really fun. We would run around, play soccer. I just felt like I understood them. I felt like they understood me, and I just got along so well with them. But of course, I was being raised to be a young lady of God. And so my mom did not appreciate me calling myself a tomboy at all. And it was a source of conflict between us. And knowing that she didn't approve of it, that my community in general didn't approve of it, it put a lot of doubt into my mind. And I would question myself and feel like I wasn't enough of a tomboy to call myself that. And I have a journal entry to read from a journal that I've never read from before on this channel. This is from September 2000, so I was 9 years old. My cousin thinks I'm a tomboy. I'm trying to be one, but I'm for sure not one. Tomboy character isn't there. Half of it, at least. I'm really hoping I'm not going to have to wear a dress to my aunt's wedding. I might have to get a babysitter. A skirt is as far as I go. I think it's really interesting that I said tomboy character. It was almost as if a tomboy was another gender in my mind. I didn't feel like a girl. I didn't feel like a boy either. I felt like a tomboy. But there was a specific way that a tomboy was. And because of the constraints of Christian fundamentalism and the gender roles that I was being raised in, I didn't feel like I could fully be one. The tomboy character was only halfway there. And the second part of that entry, where I was talking about anxiety about maybe having to wear a dress to a family member's wedding, leads into my next story. Because when I was that age, I wanted to wear clothes from the boys section. Many times that we went to the department store, I would ask my mom to let me get some clothes from the boys section. And as you can imagine, she said, absolutely not, except for one t-shirt. I was allowed to get one t-shirt from the boys section. I will put a video of myself wearing this t-shirt on the screen. It was a gray t-shirt that had a soccer ball on it with grass stains and bits of mud and grass. And it said, "Got dirt, get dirty." I was in love with this t-shirt, and if I could have worn it every single day, I would have. But the reason why my mom allowed me to get that shirt is because it was soccer related. And as I've shared before, my dad was a soccer coach and he owned a soccer business. So his two main passions and two big parts of his identity, other than being a prophet and a Christian patriarch, was soccer and music. So my mom allowed me to get this shirt in order to honor my dad. And what I wore was a big struggle between my mom and I in general, because she always wanted me to wear skirts and dresses. And I absolutely hated wearing dresses. And I would fight against it as much as I could. And it was an especially big struggle whenever we were going to some kind of event, like the aunt's wedding that I mentioned in the journal entry. And one time I discovered some clothes in the girls section that I actually really wanted. They were boy short underwear. I had never seen these before. I didn't even know such a thing existed. The shape of them was like very short biking shorts, basically. So I grabbed them off of the sales rack. I ran over to my mom. I was so excited. I said, Mom, look at these. These are called boy shorts. Can I get them? Please, please, please. She said no, but I didn't let it go. And we argued back and forth for a while. And so finally she said, okay, I'll make you a deal. If you wear a dress to Grandpa's birthday dinner, it was coming up in a month or something, I will get you these boy shorts underwear. And I thought about it really hard. I wanted the boy short underwear so badly. But the idea of having to wear the dress was much more distressing. And so even though the classic girl underwear made me uncomfortable, I still chose what I would be wearing on the outside rather than what I would be wearing underneath, under my clothes. And you know, with the perspective that I have now, it's really unfortunate that my mom didn't allow me to have that kind of underwear. It wouldn't have even shown. It would have been something just for me that no one else would have seen. It would not have impacted her in any way, but it was the principle of it. I was a girl, and there was a kind of thing that girls were supposed to wear. That was how God made me. And I would be dishonoring God by wearing a different kind of underwear, I guess. And during the times that she did allow me to go to a family get-together without wearing a dress, I still had to wear something that she deemed pretty and feminine enough. So I remember there was this one shirt in particular that I would always wear. It had 2 layers. It was a light blue tank top with a blouse that went over it that was also light blue, but it had pink flowers on it. I think that's what it looked like. I think I also have video of myself wearing it, so I will also put that up on the screen. But that was like the compromise that my mom and I were able to make with each other, because I wanted to wear boy clothes. She wanted me to wear a dress, so we were able to meet in the middle with this flowery blouse combo. And there are some pictures of me from that time period wearing dresses. I'm thinking of one in particular where I was wearing this pink flowery dress. And that was just a double whammy of me being uncomfortable. That not only was it a dress, but it was pink. And not just pink, but light pink. At this point, I love many different colors, but at the time, I did not like pink at all. So when I look at those pictures, I can just see how uncomfortable I was, how not me that dress was that I was wearing. I will also share some pictures of me wearing a backwards baseball cap. That was kind of my signature look for 2 or 3 years. And even as I started to conform more when I was around 10 and 11, conform to the way that I was supposed to present myself in a gender-related way, sometimes the backwards hat would still make an appearance. And I'm thinking that now in the present, I really need to get myself a hat that I can wear backwards. I think I really need to honor my inner child by doing that. The last story from my childhood that I want to share also involves a cousin. This was one of my girl cousins. We were very close and we loved to do creative things together. And one of the things that we liked to do together was play this game that we made up that involved these characters that we had made up. They were adventurers and they were boys. We basically took our own names and we chose the masculine version of those names to be the characters' names. So for me, my character's name was Elliot. Both Elliot and my cousin's character each had horses that they would ride, and they also had girlfriends. I absolutely loved playing this game with my cousin. I loved pretending to be Elliot. And of course, my cousin may have felt very differently about it. But for me, this was a way that I could embody some masculine traits, embrace some masculine feelings in what felt like an appropriate way, because it was just pretend. But I was so proud of the character Elliot, and I just felt such a deep connection with him. And I just want to say, I'm wondering if anyone watching this is going to think that that means that I'm actually transgender, that I'm actually a man. And I have thought about that too, of course, in questioning my gender. And as of right now, that really doesn't resonate for me personally. I think that my desire to wear boy clothes, to do these things that were more associated with boys, more acceptable in the eyes of my community for boys to do and to be, and my love for pretending to be this boy character Elliot, for me has a lot more to do with being genderqueer and being non-binary. Because again, I really didn't feel like a boy and I didn't feel like a girl. My word for what I felt like was tomboy. And when I look at pictures of myself from that time period, I don't see a girl. I also don't see a boy. I just see a kid. Of course, for most of my life, I have believed that I am a woman, and even after learning about the term cisgender, I have believed that that's me. In many of my videos on this channel, I have said that I am cisgender. So, I'm sure you're wondering, what was my process of getting to this point when I can confidently say that I am not? Well, it actually started with one of the videos that I made. On Easter last year, 2021, I uploaded a video called Growing Up as a Queer Kid in Christian Fundamentalism. And in that video, I talked about how my understanding of the word queer was changing and the ways that I was recognizing my queerness as a child and as a young teen. And pretty much right after I uploaded that video, in the days and the weeks following, I was like, everything I talked about is gender related. And I was also getting comments from non-binary people saying that they really resonated with what I was saying. And I was like, that's true. It is all gender related, but I'm fine as a woman. I was assigned female at birth, and I'm fine with that. Right? And thus began the questioning. I didn't mean to start questioning. I wasn't planning on it in any way. But making that video truly was the start of a lot of questions that just wouldn't leave me alone after that. And you can actually hear some hints of my questioning in past videos. They're very subtle and you'd have to be looking for them, but I know they're there because I felt them in the moment. Some of it was just pausing, just a split second before saying that I'm a woman or saying that I'm cisgender. Others are a little bit more specific. Can't you just feel the patronizing tone that Egrich uses when he talks to the ladies? Ugh, which I hate being called a lady. It was all very confusing, and sometimes it still is. But me privately acknowledging to myself, okay, when I was a kid, I was definitely non-binary, and if I had been allowed to express myself and develop in the way that I wanted to, maybe I would be non-binary now, but that isn't what happened, so I guess I'm a woman. I was thinking, I feel sad that my kid self wasn't able to grow up the way that I truly am inside, but it's okay. That's in the past. What has happened, and I guess the window has passed, and there's no sense in me bringing it up now. So I'll just keep it to myself. But then I told my siblings, and we got to talking more, and I kept questioning. I really have resisted this whole process. I have found it to be very scary, and I have really worried about losing people that I love, their respect and my connection to them. But again, it's really not something that I could stop. The questions just kept coming. About 6 months into this questioning of my gender. Kristen and Jen from the Kitchen and Jorn show released their video announcing that they were trying out she, they pronouns. And I have loved Kristen and Jen for a long time, since their days on BuzzFeed. I really admire their friendship, and they're both such cool people, and I've really enjoyed their content for many years. So when they came out with this video, it meant so much to me. I related so deeply to so many things that they both said. I was so grateful for the way that they put themselves out there and the way that they showed their process. You know, they didn't know for sure what their gender identity was. They felt conflicted, just like me. And yet they decided to try out they, them pronouns for the first time. And they encouraged all of us watching that if we wanted to try out other pronouns, we could. I just sort of sat on it for many months, and I kept returning to the video and watching it and thinking and thinking and thinking. And I just kept sort of like weighing the pros and cons of like trying out they, them pronouns and, you know, going public in any way, like big or small, you know, not just on my YouTube channel, even just in my own personal life. Is this a big enough deal? Do I need to do this? Do I deserve to do this? A lot of shame-related feelings and fears and concerns. And again, I'm so thankful for that video because that is a huge part of how I was able to gather enough courage to share on YouTube. But I also, around the same time, Pride Month of this year, 2022, I updated my new pronouns on my personal Instagram. So I didn't actually, you know, make a post like officially coming out. And to be honest, I haven't even told a lot of people in my life directly. I just very quietly updated my pronouns, and I figured I'm sure people will see it. If they have any questions, they can ask me. If not, it's just gonna be there, and this is all I feel comfortable doing right now. With YouTube, because of the way that I structured my channel, introducing myself in every single video with my pronouns, it was gonna be harder to not share this update. And behind the scenes, I deliberated about that too. I thought, well, I could just keep going with introducing myself with only she, her, because that is true. I'm still using she, her, so I don't have to necessarily share they, them. I could stop introducing myself with my pronouns. That might be a little obvious and maybe, you know, cause some confusion. And ultimately, I just decided to go for it. And many people actually have asked before why I even started sharing my pronouns in the beginning. And there's two main reasons for that. Number one, I wanted to be a part of disrupting and challenging the idea that you can know someone's pronouns just by looking at them. And number two, I just wanted my channel to be as safe and welcoming as possible to trans and non-binary people, not only because I have trans and non-binary people that I love dearly in my life, but also because, you know, coming from Christian fundamentalism and Christian nationalism, that is extremely transphobic and patriarchal, etc. I wanted to make it really clear from the beginning of my channel where I stood. I just wanted to stand against that hate and that oppression. So that's how it started. And again, like, I truly believed that I was a cisgender person, and I had no idea, truly no idea, that I would ever question my own gender, that I would ever use any pronouns other than she, her. So it was a big surprise for me. But when I made that short for Pride Month where I announced that I am now using she, they pronouns, the majority of responses I got were so incredibly kind and warm and welcoming and encouraging. And honestly, I cannot even describe to you all how much that meant to me. I was just overwhelmed with gratitude and excitement for the love and acceptance that so many of you put into my comments and into my life. And so I do want to say thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. Being perfectly honest, I do prefer they, them pronouns. And at first, I wasn't sure. At first, I was kind of like on the fence about it and was just sort of like, she or they, doesn't really matter. Now, I really do prefer they, them, and I know that for sure. My siblings both use they, them pronouns for me exclusively. And there is an LGBTQ plus center that I have gone to before for various groups, and I will always introduce myself with my pronouns there. And I'm really grateful for those spaces, and it feels really good to have people use they, them pronouns for me. She, her makes me feel, I don't hate it, but it definitely doesn't feel as good as they, them. At some point, I may want to be more proactive about people knowing and understanding and respecting my gender, but for now, I just sort of go about my life, and I'm focusing more on affirming myself and accepting myself and knowing who I am, rather than trying to get other people to see that. Because I know that a lot of people don't and won't. It takes a lot of time and effort and energy to advocate for yourself in that way. And the thing is, for me, I feel different ways about different gendered terms and language. So for instance, I relate really, really deeply to anyone talking about being an oldest daughter. And I even saw this great tweet that I will put up on the screen that said something like, I may not be a woman, but I'm absolutely an oldest daughter. And I feel that way too. That has been a huge, huge part of my life's experience. I'm also okay with the word mom. For me, it just feels more like a relational thing rather than a gender thing. My daughter has always called me mom, and it doesn't feel bad to me at all. It just feels like what she calls me and who I am to her. That being said, I hate being called mother or mama. It feels physically painful to be called mama in any context. I also identify as a gentleman, and I have for a long time. I open a lot of doors for people, and I always have, and I've always felt very gentlemanly. I like being called dude. I definitely feel like a dude in a lot of ways. Even though I have no grandkids, I feel equally like a grandma and a grandpa. And maybe all of this makes no sense to a lot of people, and that's okay. I'm just hoping that maybe a couple of people will relate. Well, this turned out to be a much longer video than I was expecting. I'm curious to see how long it's going to be once I edit it, but I've been filming for a couple of hours now. Thank you so much for watching if you've made it this far, and for listening to what is definitely one of the most vulnerable videos I have ever made. I'm really nervous to put it out there in the world, but I'm also proud of myself for being so honest. I really appreciate having so many kind and encouraging and supportive watchers. Here is a big air hug for anyone who wants it. A high five for anyone who doesn't like hugs, and for anyone who doesn't want to be touched at all. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.